the lady of the moment.
Hello.
Madame, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah, excited about the book club coming out, and I'm going to have some more series kind of breaking it down further into pieces and, topically kind of addressing some of the big schemes of it. But we talked about, last week about the Watchers in the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilee. We're going to be doing a show next week where we're going to kind of outline the major books in that, because it's so vital. Like once you see it, like you start to see how, so much of those books, even though they're ancient texts, are present today. Like people still go off of them. They form, they shape the beliefs of cultures. And, it helps us have that better understanding of what we're dealing with. And it's going to get interesting, everything.
I love that. And I love that we're actually doing that on a show as well, because that's going to obviously give insight into diving deeper into the books, because there's some super duper interesting ones that are coming up. So guys, come and join us on Patreon and members once a month. And haven't we got a Harry Potter Decode coming up soon?
We do, yeah, for membership. That's going to be dynamic.
I can't wait to watch Harry Potter again. I'm not going to tell a lie. I love Harry Potter, so...
I like being able to explain my childhood, but, it's funny. It's a very well done production, but they don't put all the difficult things in there, but they, give you more of a taste of reality of what it is like for hierarchy children.
And again, what we see in the movie is like nowhere near the reality of what goes on. So we know that. We see the fun stuff, the adventure stuff, like the fighting the bad guy, the good guy fighting the bad guy stuff on a whole nother level, which has never been seen before. So, in the movies and stuff like that. And I remember actually when the first Harry Potter was launched here, it was exactly the same weekend as Lord of the Rings. The first Lord of the Rings came along at the same time as the first Harry Potter, which is super interesting, actually.
That is. Yeah.
I went to watch Lord of the Rings first.
I did too.
I
don't think I saw Harry Potter until years after it had been released. But
no, I think I went a couple of weeks after. But definitely Lord of the Rings was just the production. And I think, also relevant to and relevant to what we live in, right? And I think it's so good to, when we've got eyes more open now, we can see the intention with which many of these movies are made as well. So that's cool.
We should do a decode on that, the 5 rings and how that connects to Metatron and all the portals.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Have you written that down?
I am right now, yeah. Because that even gets into the Book of Enoch. So that could be an interesting show. We'll do that.
Very cool. Let's do it. So you all see we've got some cool things popping up in the ideas bank today. In the Era Ideas Bank. Anyway, is there anything that you want to maybe share with the viewers? Anything else? And
I do have some really...
Yeah,
I have some really cool stuff coming up. Starting this, not this week, I think it's the following, starting the 15th through the 21st, I have another call to prayer for everybody who enjoyed doing that. And the focus on this one is going to be a passion for the Lord. I encourage people to register. You can do so on my website, thekingdomlivingwithjessie.com. Then I have another international decode for those who enjoy looking at the coat of arms, and we've just been kind of going through the different countries bit by bit, trying to decode all those. But we're going to have Ireland and Dublin, Switzerland, tours France for a few of those, and that's going to be Tuesday the 17th from 10 to noon Eastern time. And then February 20th, I have the next Work of His Hands strategy group. That's been very amazing group. You know, it's for anybody, whether you're working on health, diet, fitness, you know, your business, ministry, your spiritual walk, whatever it is. You know, we're all just coming together to kind of work through things in our lives. And I've been going through different strategies and things the Lord's been teaching me. So this next month, we're going to really look at YouTube. You know, if you've got a YouTube channel and all you do on there is scroll videos and never known that you could use it as an asset, whether that's, you know, creating little shorts or, you know, things that you can put up, those are things that we're going to go over this next month on how to do that. So I encourage people to, if that's something you've been wanting to do, or if you just need incentive, you know, for different things
Wonderful.
that you're working on, that can be the best way to do it. So, and then one more coming up in March, the 12th and the 19th in the evening from 7 to 10 p.m. I've got the Queen of Heaven workshop. And in that, we're going to decode how the system uses the image of Mary and what they communicate through that image. That's going to be very similar to the architecture and altars workshop that I did, where, you know, this is your highest level. How are they using, you know, those images, those symbols at the top of the system, and what are they communicating through them? Who's meeting in the place, and what are they doing when they display those images? So.
Wow. Sounds great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Do you want me to go ahead and pray? Sorry, we're getting a little leg here.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, that all things are being laid out bare before the world for all of us to see. Father, as we look at these images today and we see the people that are so bound in the system, everything about them displays their idols and the entities that they worship. And Lord, we ask for wisdom, we ask for knowledge and understanding in this, but we also ask at a deeper level that you would break the chains of wickedness and the yokes of oppression, that you would bring freedom and deliverance, that we would not be bound by the same entities or spirits that these people are, but that we would, in our authority, you know, be able to drive those spirits out. And we ask for that change. In your powerful name, Jesus, amen. All right. Oh, you got to unmute. Okay, you want me to keep talking? Okay, go ahead and put the pictures up. So in this first show, we're going to really get into the Grammys, and I love the presentation of this. So thank you for our helpful person who did this behind the scenes. But we've got a few here, and I really think it's important to kind of point out, you know, some of the money stream that these individuals, you know, are getting with these things. And that kind of tells you who's kind of driving, who's steering things, not just regionally, but sometimes quadrantally. In our past Grammy shows, oh, and I'm getting a little feedback there. We've talked about, you know, how they use these events to kind of display who's in power, who's in authority at the time. They'll display their allegiances to different entities. They also will display at times their trafficking routes, what they're going to be specializing in. And, it's a way for them to easily be able to, put out their who's in control and authority without getting a lot of kickback. And in fact, they get a lot of support for this. This is part of how they drum up allegiance and get a lot of followers, a lot of people behind them. And that's part of the war. They're in a constant battle between the dark and the light side. And you'll see that. You'll see a lot of dark and light imagery. You'll see a lot of display of colors. And we talked about that, even how they'll use these events to speak about upcoming ceremonies or rituals that, people who are elevating into new positions, all of that can be displayed at these events. Like, we talked about a Grammy, or I think it was the Oscars last time, where we had Sam Smith, you had Madonna sponsoring him, and you had everything in his display and presentation showing that he was going for one of the positions for a grand high priest, and that he'd be going through the sufferings and the blasphemies for that. So, they can use all of these, even the, commercials at the Super Bowl, all of those can be used to display their power, their authority, and who's kind of in the running for things. And I love that this kind of shows to a money connection. Notice that we just recently, we had done a decode on Bad Bunny, and I encourage people, go back and watch that. Look at the amount of money that is connected to him. And we also see a unique thing with his outfit, that, you've got kind of what looks like a white rose, you've got the black bow tie, all of that, we normally just pass off and say, oh, he's just dressed nice for the Grammys. But when we understand that, usually that white rose look is reserved for the Rosary, or the Rotarians, who are part of like an upper level of those coming out of the Rosicrucian. We've talked about how the white roses are connected to breeder programs. And usually you're not, with that, you're going to see some interesting things. Like, is he connected to the Rotarians? Has he now graduated into that? There's some other things too, and again, it could be taken two ways. Like, if he was just a normal person, we wouldn't really be thinking much about a white rose and a black tie. But because he, we've seen a lot of other things that, show that he's connected to Masonry, that he's connected to the system, that he's probably in a position where, he's considered one of the kings and has made it, to regional kind of oversight over things. It makes sense, if he's made it that far, that he's going to keep advancing in his magical powers, in his authority, in his jurisdiction. So with that in mind, there could be a connection between the black tie and the white rose look. And, when you understand what is being communicated, what is the advancement he may be going for, it is of concern. Within the system, you get a special elite group of your special councils, your special chambers. There's horrific things that these members have to go through in order to become a part of those special chambers. And one of those special chambers is your Council of 21, which is also known as the Black Tuxedos. Now, usually they're not going to wear the black tuxedos once they're initiated in. Their symbol is like a, a tuxedo, but it's going to be vertical. It looks more like an hourglass when you see their symbol. It could be either way, depending on which lower council they're connected to. Your council of the east to the west, their hourglass symbol will be like the bow tie, but when they're connected to the north and south councils, their bow tie will be vertical. And usually once they're initiated in at the higher levels of that, there's going to be that combination of a half black, half white hourglass. So, there's some initiatory degrees they're going to have to get through first before they're fully initiated into that. These people work directly with Lucifer, and they're pretty intense, and it is common for them to have members that are connected to Latino cultures. So that is something that to kind of keep your eye on with Mr. Bad Bunny there. I'm not familiar with a lot of Rose's work. So, it's interesting that she's up there. Billie Eilish kind of has the tuxedo look going on too. I don't know her to be high enough to be in any special councils. I think that's kind of her unique thing. But do I believe that there's a connection with witchcraft, sorcery, and divination kind of hidden behind the scenes with Billie Eilish? I do. And I think that there's a lot that they use her to promote and draw people in, and to very dark oppression. She carries a lot of oppression with her, and her music puts spirits of oppression over people. It doesn't surprise me that money-wise she's up there. Lady Gaga is also another high person. We're going to really get into her in the second show today, but she's definitely somebody to keep your eye on. And there's been some grand high priest positions or priestess positions open. They've been waiting for individuals to kind of step up, apply for those positions, and claim their authority. And I think that this Grammy, ceremony is definitely Lady Gaga's declaration of several things, and we're going to look further into that. The black feathers, are highly connected to witchcraft, but she's already beyond that. She's a high priestess. Her training has been under one of her people was Marina Abramovich. When you trace that back, there's high connections between Marina and Gloria Vanderbilt. And, putting Lady Gaga under Gloria, who is one of the grand high priestesses for the East. And there's going to be some interesting things coming out of that. It's going to get dark for the second show. I'll just put it that way. This is not, just your typical dark witch type stuff that Lady Gaga is getting into. Nicki Minaj is also somebody to watch. There's been a lot where she's been kind of coming alongside of Trump. I personally don't take that as a good thing. I believe she's the one. I've seen some stuff with her kind of going down that same track as Ye, who we also know as what's his other name? I'm trying to Kardashians.
Kanye West.
Kanye, yeah, thank you. I was blanking on it at the moment, but along with Justin Bieber and supposedly Marilyn Manson, you've kind of had a movement of individuals that are kind of playing that fine line, looking like they're coming out, like they're coming to Jesus. But I really feel like it's light side of the system. And, you know, I don't think it's by accident that she's buddying with Trump. And that's not saying anything bad about Trump. I think that, you know, you're getting some of these people coming alongside to bear an image of good, but what are they really doing? You know, I think it's a way for them to gain access and to be, you know, kind of to put themselves under a we're good guys, that form of godliness, by aligning with people who really are good people. So I think that that's what we see happening. And she's definitely somebody to keep your eye on. I think it's all a form of godliness. I don't think that there's a true change in her heart. I could be wrong on that. You know, there's still time to tell, but I really think she's stepping forward as one of, you know, your light side, higher level players in all of this. Bruno Mars is another curious person. He's going to be doing a lot of stuff with Rose, and we'll get into his attire. Justin Bieber, again, we've mentioned in connection with Kanye, claiming a lot that he's come out, you know, claiming that he's kind of had his moment come to Jesus. But I think, you know, prominent light side of the system. Same with Kendrick Lamar. You're going to see some interesting things with the Sa, which we'll get into the performance with some of that. You see a lot of demonic imagery of the entities that they're worshiping and highlighting. And Harry Styles, I didn't really get into a lot with him and am not too familiar with him, but he's up there with them. So, you know, kind of on the low end. So all these people are people to kind of keep your eyes on. All right, let's get into their attire and some of the interesting things coming out of that this year. Go ahead to the next one. So again, we see here, you know, Bad Bunny. We see what looks like your typical suit, you know, and there's a slight thing which is interesting that, you know, again, it could be just maybe he, you know, wasn't quite fully situated with his outfit. We'll give him that. But you see at the bottom, his left inner pants leg is tucked into his shoe. And that can be used as a sign, either with the left or the right. When they're going through initiations, they actually will tuck in their pants layers, but they'll also, if they're part of certain clubs, will do that. If it would have been tucked into the right foot, which would have been the other foot, that would have given way that he was connected to the Brotherhood biker groups, not your motorcycle groups, but you get those that will be connected to bicycles, and they will engage in their trafficking through bicycles. So if it's the left foot, usually that is signifying some sort of ritual and initiation. So we see that there. Then you see his lapel, and it looks like he only has the one side that's kind of very, it looks like there's decorations of some sort, while the other side, you know, you just see the flower, the pocket like up higher. You know, I think all that's significant, and I think that that's meant to display, you know, we've talked about how, you know, if they're considered an Aaronic priest or priest of Melchizedek, how they'll do things with ribbons, or they'll wear their lapel off one shoulder or the other. So I think it's meant to look like he's wearing a lapel off that right shoulder. And then he's got the rose, which the rose or the white ribbon off the left means that they are a priest of Melchizedek. And so this is one of the things where, you know, in combination with the tucked in thing under his foot, I think he specifically you know, presenting what he has been and presenting that he's now going for something higher, which I think is going to be connected to your Council of 21. But we'll see what, you know, furthers with that. Go ahead to the next one. And I'll give fair warning, some of these clothing attires for the women are going to get pretty scanty. This one, it's like, what in the world? You know, you get Chappelle Rowan. I think that, you know, you get a couple things with this. One, there's a display of the henna, and both on her front as well as on her back. There's some elaborate designs. But we talked about how your red can often be connected to your high priestesses, specifically those of the South, whether in the United States or international. I do believe she is a high priestess, and, you know, I think that she's just come in to be parts of the ceremonies and the things. But very interesting attire, to say the least. And let's go ahead to the next one. Here you have another one, Tiana Taylor. Again, you know, there's just the weird scanty clothes. Like, you know, I think that this is probably one of the most, you know, we had yesterday or last year where they were all looking like weird bubbles, a lot of weird tuxedo looks. This is, I think, you know, we're just going to continue to see that weird display where they're trying to, you know, it used to be that they would use their jewels. They would use jewels, they would use lace to kind of signify their levels, to signify who's, you know, who's what level, what position in the system, and who are their escorts. Because with these ceremonies, you know, you're going to have individuals that are both connected to positions like high priest, grand high priest, or priestesses, but you're also going to have people that are their high-end escorts who, you know, they're going to elevate to have a reason for them to be at the certain parties. And I think they're finding new creative ways to display those things. You know, this looking like, you get your old ancient priestess looks like your priestesses of Delphi, your priestesses of Melissa. You know, they'll do things where, you know, you'll get the sash around the hips going off the right or going off the left. And we kind of see, you know, how this is really kind of, you know, focused on that right side and then just barely over the left side. And I think, you know, it's a new way for the priestesses to display things about their connections and what levels they are. So, you know, that
can we just get real for a minute here, please? That is not a woman. No.
Right, but men can be priestesses too, you know, now. So
that's a male,
which tells us
masquerading. What? Sorry.
No, go ahead and finish what you were saying.
I was just saying, if you look at her body, that's a man's body, completely 100%. And to me, again, it's, you know, it's kind of like signaling this Baphomet transgender image that the world now needs to embrace as the new normal, because it's becoming more and more normal that clearly transgendered people or transitioned people, you know, are showing that off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with anyone transgendering, but then call yourself that, you know, don't, yeah, that's dangerous this year. because it's, you know, it's kind of presenting this as the new normal.
Yeah.
More
And I
more.
love how, I think it was Chihan, if I said that wrong, forgive me, but in the chat, you know, Chihan, you're absolutely right that, you know, the way that things are looped around, it does give that, you know, appearance of Adam and Eve and the serpent, you know, being wrapped around the tree. And is that what that's signifying, you know, with the blend of it looking both like the woman and the man in one body, you know, that full embodiment of man, Adam, Eve, and the serpent, you know, that very well could be, you know, what the image is trying to display. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah, so go ahead to the next one. You know, again, like, I mean, I saw some of the video footage supposedly of Heidi Klum in this dress, and she's walking. She can't even walk in it. Like, she looks like, you know, it's like she's got no movement. Where's the class? Where's the real beauty? Like, it's like these are embarrassing clothes to wear. Like, you can't even look normal in it.
And there's nothing left, you know, and there's nothing left to the imagination. You know, part about the beauty of women is that we are mysterious creatures, you know. So by exposing yourself now, firstly, I look at Heidi Klum there. That doesn't even look like the same Heidi Klum that I recognize from 10 years ago, whatever. Secondly, if that is Heidi Klum, which they say it is, I mean, she's way into her 50s already. And there are a lot of 50-something women that look very good. They've taken good care of their bodies and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, doesn't there come a time where you decide not to show your goods to the world? You know?
Right. Well, I think this is more nefarious than that. You know, we're going to see in the second show more of this coming out. But let's think of the darker side of the system. You know, these people have a way of presenting themselves as good, you know, having that form about them that we've all come to learn and love. But I mean, literally those clips and the way that the dress looks like torn at the top and the bottom, like it really reminds me of many things in the system, and you know, not good things. You know, we know the darker side, the spirit cooking, but we also know that there's dark things in necromancy and necrophilia. And, you know, is this supposed to be looking like, you know, parts of a body, like she's wearing somebody else? You know, is that what it's, is that what it's meant to look like or remind everybody of? I think it is. You know, we're going to see a lot of things further, that a lot of the music that is going to connect to forms of necromancy and necrophilia. And I think it's meant, you know, this event, if I were to define it in 2 words, that would be it. It's meant to, you know, be those kind of displaying their necrophilia and their necromancy. Yeah.
I would definitely say that's kind of like meant to replicate human skin.
Yeah. I mean, those clips are like almost the same ones, like that you see morticians will use clips like that. At least that's what it reminds me of. But anyway, let's we'll keep going. Yeah, I think it's a skin suit for sure. Now, you know, these ladies have, I think, some of the prettiest dresses for the show, but I don't think it's a good thing either. You know, we've talked about the lace and that being connected. The more complicated it is, the more, you know, the higher end they are with sex magic. You know, so are these women priestesses? They could be. I'm not familiar enough with the group to, you know yay or nay, but I think that there's a lot that that we see, and I think that, you know, there's a very good plausibility, especially with things that come out later, and I think that they are connected within the system, and good chances, you know, they're connected either to escort things or, you know, to priestess duties in some sort or another. You know, these people don't just rise in power because they're, you know, good or wholesome. That's the sad part. You know, a lot of people get into the music industries and get sucked into the evil and, you know, the
Well, none of those
done.
girls, none of them look ecstatically happy. They all look pretty miserable. So I'm pretty sure they must have done something to get there.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah, go ahead to the next one. Yeah, good old Lady Gaga. You know, we've had some shows where we've got into some of the underground cities, the connection with Morgana to some of those. I think that this is a direct declaration of her connection to Morgana and high-level sorcery. You know, but we'll get into more of her later. But, you know, many of these higher level individuals, they do get into things like shape shifting. They get into using familiar creatures. Certain familiars are connected to certain wizards or sorceresses. You'll get the crow and the raven being highly connected to Morgana. Morgana is connected to certain territories, and you know, that is going to directly connect to underground Avalon. So you get one underground Avalon being in the UK, you get another mirrored one being somewhere else, but I think, you know, it's her declaration to certain territories and areas that she's now, you know, overseeing. And we know last time too, we saw her highly connected with the pink fluffy look. And we talked about how that deals with children, you know, abductions, different things. She was highly connected to the France area. And we know, you know, connected to France and different, you know, the different areas that were kind of going up. You have a connection with her last time where, you know, it's very plausible that she was connecting to France, to the Cathedral of Luxembourg, to Notre Dame. And with that, you're going to get a direct connection to Bohemian Grove. But is now her territory expanding? Up until this point, you've had Avalon, you know, being connected to Lightside. Is she now declaring, you know, that she's connecting to that and now becoming the Grand High Sorceress of that area? And she's going to be bringing in some dark side stuff there. And there may be a reason why she's doing that. That could be with certain territories and bases where they have to move certain things now because of things happening worldwide. And they may be moving some of their darker things to different areas. And I think that's what we're seeing. So, yeah. Go ahead to the next one. Yeah, again, we see, you know, a lot with the very sheer and, you know, this one too, like it can be taken a few ways, but I want to kind of point out, you get again, like her it could just be she's holding her dress, or it could be that she's meant to look, it's meant to look like the longer, I don't even know what you call them, but shawls. You get your priestesses where they'll have their shawls and they'll display them in different ways based on their type of priestess and what type of services they offer. But this looking very much like your water, water priestesses, and the buttons all the way down, that's a certain look too that they'll wear, and that gets into necromancy and those who perform different necromancy roles. You get sometimes that the difference between your priestesses, with the water, those that are going to directly connect to spirits and seances, medium type things. So that type of, if it's meant to display that type of shawl, not only is she going to be connected to water spirits, but she's going to be connected to, seances and different things like that, connecting to the dead. But yeah, so interesting. Go ahead to the next one. Again, we get that very sheer look, but then you get kind of that puffy look with Justin Bieber, and you get the one button up top, which that, you will get certain Freemason looks, as well as your upper level councilmen and those connected to different orders, where they will have badges, emblems that they'll wear, and they'll wear them in certain places to signify their oaths, their contracts. We can't see what the pin or the badge is, what's on it, but notice that his wife Haley has one in the exact same spot, and both of them kind of over where the heart would be. So I find that very interesting, and I don't think it's just their attire choice. I think it's meant to replicate certain things, connected to their brotherhood vows and their positions within the brotherhood. Again, he's been connected to Kanye. I don't believe he's out. I very much believe he's still in, and he's kind of gone with light side of the system declarations. I think that's what we're seeing. Go ahead to the next one. Yeah, Billie Eilish. Again, we're getting the white and the black. As they say in the system, you don't have, women who are Freemasons, but again, this is one where you get very much that Baphomet blended between man, woman, tomboy, feminine look. We know the belt buckles in the system, you directly see that in the emblems for your Order of the Bath, which is connected to sovereign military groups. Is there a connection for this for Billie? Again, we have another draping, like we saw the one where it kind of looked like the serpent draping over. You see a draping of kind of looking like a scarf, a mantle. So, interesting. Now with this too, the look of the garters can be used to, tie back a pants leg. You would see it with the sock if the pants leg was pulled up. So is this another way to display, that right side, that pants leg being pulled up, and that there's initiation vows of some sort taking place, You've got part of the belt buckle hanging down in several spots. Is that meant to look like those cues for the Order of the Garter? And, you know, is Billy somehow connected to regional leadership and rising up into a bigger position with things? You know, you've kind of had a dismantling over in the UK of your Knights of Malta and your Knights of the Bath and the Garter, which is what that belt buckle represents, you know, with the death of Queen Elizabeth. So who's taking over that? You know, who's taking over Avalon? If, you know, if in fact that is Lady Gaga stepping into that as the High Sorceress, you know, who are going to be the wizards stepping up with her? Could Billie Eilish be one of those wizards? And is this the creative way of displaying that? It's highly plausible. You know, your Knights of Malta and Order of the Bath and Garter are going to have, you know, the black, the white look. You know, so it's plausible that you're going to have Billie Eilish in conjunction with Lady Gaga stepping up over that area. But let's go ahead to the next one. Yeah, Miley Cyrus, you know, another one highly connected in, you know, different ways with Lady Gaga and, you know, your Grand High Priestesses of the East. And unfortunately, you know, there's stuff that we see that I think is all interconnecting. Why I wanted to show these older pictures of Lady Gaga was this was the outfit Lady Gaga wore to the inauguration of President, or we won't even give him that title, but Biden. You know, and we had done a decode on it and talked about how that blue and the red represents Babylon, and then you have the red representing, you know, the Sanhedrin, and you've got that dove, which can represent different orders and circles, particularly, you know, your order of the Holy Ghost and Holy Spirit and your order of the Golden Circle, all connected under the Vatican and, you know, your Orthodox churches. You also had the look with her hair of Frida, you know, which gets into some of the connections with your Grand High Priestesses. So, you know, you have that look, and we see something very similar, but done all in black and white here with Miley, you know, where you get kind of that very much similar, same look. And then you've got the big pin, and, you know, is it meant to look like feathers, like arrows, you know, over the same shoulder? You know, I think that there's a display here, and we see, you know, beyond the Lady Gaga with her displaying kind of that very similar look, we see it also with the Hunger Games series, where Katniss, you know, has the arrows, and later there's a lapel that, or a badge pin that she wears that's very similar in that. So I think that there is, and is there a connection to that with the Golden Circle? You know, I think there is. And I think, again, you know, all of this is a display of the different orders that they're connecting to, that they're advancing into. When you even get into the system, that the C and the M, you know, I don't think it's just representing Miley Cyrus. In the workshop I'm going to do on the Queen of Heaven, we're going to get more into that symbol of M and how they use that imagery as almost like you'll see it in some of the churches that you go into, where they literally hang, you know, like a sash in that, you know, drape it where it looks like an M there. And that connects to certain sovereign military brotherhood orders, but also connects to, you know, priestesses, sorry, and it connects to sex magic. The C's connect to different councils, different dioceses, and you know, those are different ways that they'll send out messages. So I think that, you know, this is more, I think it means more than Miley Cyrus, and I think that it is a call up to your Order of the Golden Circle. And I think that she's displaying very certain things there. And again, you know, we see the focus of it being on the left shoulder, almost like, you know, they're displaying their ribbons that would show their Order of Melchizedek and different orders they're connected to, you know, over that left shoulder. So I think that it's very purposeful, and I think that there are things definitely being communicated. So let's go ahead to the next one. This is again showing, you know, you had very similar imagery with Katniss for the Hunger Games, and that was the lapel that they showed her also wearing during that series. So I wanted to kind of show that in its fullness so you could kind of see the imagery, and with the birds, the arrows, the gold circle, which is connected to your Order of the Golden Circle. Go ahead to the next one. We have Chrissy Teigen, again, somebody who, you know, in John Legend, Chrissy Teigen being highly connected to cannibalism, and, you know, the consuming of human flesh. And, you know, although her dress kind of looks decent, you get that, you know, looks that, you know, I mean, I think back to certain tweets and things where, you know, she's talking about pieces we know in the spirit cooking in connection to Marina Abramovic. There's all sorts of things that they do with art that they want to pass off as art. And that even got into, you know, using body pieces in art, where, you know, Marina was taking pieces of people's flesh and frying it up and having them eat parts of their own flesh. And I can't look at Chrissy Teigen and look at this dress and see it as anything good or feminine or wholesome. All I see is her displaying, you know, her wickedness. And, you know, it disturbs me greatly, even though, you know, it looks like a simple, just floral dress. I don't think that that's what she's trying to describe in that. And you got, you know, John Legend kind of pulling off what I would call your Mr. Rogers look. You know, it could just be a nice suit, but I really think that, you know, it's meant to kind of look like normal people. You know, you have eras where, you know, they had the men who would display themselves as kind of that Mr. Rogers, that good, wholesome, at home kind of guy. And then you'd get the very, you know, Stafford wife look, you know, and them kind of looking like they're a normal family with a husband that's supportive, or, you know, a partner that's supportive. And yet, you know, really behind the scenes, they're engaged in all sorts of grotesque evil. So, you know, that again, you know, it could just be a suit and a dress, but I think when we really look deep into these people, you know, it just keeps getting deeper and deeper into what they're all engaged in the system. Go ahead to the next one. I don't know a lot about John Balvin or his connections. I don't know if you do, Chanti, if you know a lot about his stuff.
I don't, I'm afraid. I don't know who a lot of these people are, but him I definitely don't know. Looks like he's
Right.
got some wild tattoos going on there.
Yeah,
And
and
is
a
doing
ring
a
on
lot
the
to,
left pinky.
yeah, I was going to say, and is doing a lot to show off those rings and those fingers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we know with diamonds in the system, you know, we know what the connection is with that. You know, we don't know enough to say anything about J Belvin, but I think that's something worth looking into if there's more, and if there's a connection with him and diamonds in the system. Or you know, we know men will, in the Masonic lines, will have, you know, very large rings that they'll display. And but we'll keep going because we don't know enough about him to say much. The same with Doechi. I don't know much about her either. But you got the red, you got the purple. We know the purple, you know, is something that is used a lot, both with your Order of Melchizedek as well as with your masonry. It's, you get a lot with the purple and the white cords being connected to escorts. We've talked about sometimes how they'll use the lacing or of the ribbon, like we see up at the top of her dress. That can be used to show certain things, like types of, you know, you kind of have the gypsy look going on, especially with the shoes. Is she displaying that connection? Gypsies are going to highly be connected with your wolves, your vampires, your sovereign military that are running through those lines. Could there be a connection with that? You know, the lacing, sometimes we've talked about how that and the tight sashes around the waist can be used to display wolves or vampires. You know, it's very plausible that there could be a connection to those things for her. But again, I don't know enough on this one to be able to say a yay or nay for sure. But Trevor Noah, yeah, we've got a lot with him. The connection, you know, the weekend.
You guys
right?
can have him. We don't want him anymore.
No, we
You
are
can
not.
have him. Take him.
This guy, George Eisman and I have shown on the Reveal report his one song that was connected where he literally is doing his last you know, he's made his way through the book of the Red Dragon. He literally has made his connection, given his allegiance to Lucifer, to Leviathan, to Asmodeus. He does the ritual live in his concerts. This guy is a high level Solomonic Enochian magic individual, high level Golden Dawn.
But hang on, I want to just make sure we're talking about the same person here.
Yeah.
This is Trevor Noah. He's not a musician. He's a comedian.
He's not connected to The Weeknd. He looks like the guy who's the Weeknd guy.
I'm actually not sure if that's what his show is called.
Okay,
but he is. Yeah, he's a comedian, but he's very much a Bill Gates puppet. He was. He's.
I might be
obviously
thinking of the wrong guy, but let me look.
He's a South African, and he's well renowned for having a white father and a black mother. And he speaks a lot about that in his
I guess they
journey.
are. Yeah, they are two separate people. I guess they do. It's Abel Tesfaye, who I was talking about, but I guess they do get that a lot, that they physically resemble each other very much. So yeah,
Probably.
so they are two separate. I was talking about Abel Tesfaye, who's from The Weeknd, who definitely is a high level councilman and has done all those things. But it says that he is connected, that there is a connection between Trevor and Abel, that you know, there's been some things beyond the shared resemblance. So, yeah, so that's interesting. But two different people. He is the comedian, you're right.
And he's, I think he was the master of ceremonies, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
at the awards this year. And he's definitely a Bill Gates puppet. He's claimed to fame. He's mixed race. His father's Swiss and his mother's African.
Wow.
So that's his story that gave him the rise to fame, basically. And he's a comedian. And yes, when he was here and when he was local, we really did like him. He was extremely funny. And then just before lockdown, he was bought by Bill Gates.
Wow.
And he was, he's got definitely some comedy show on one of the big channels there in America. And yeah, he was very much endorsing the jab, stuff like that. But we don't like him here anymore. Which
we know is so nefarious, you know, all the junk and the harm that Bill Gates is trying to do through those things. You know, so I definitely feel there's a brotherhood connection with him.
Yeah, sure. For sure, there would be.
How many, let's keep going. How many more do we have here?
A couple. Let's go.
All right.
Oopsie. There we go.
Yeah, Keisha, again, she's somebody I don't know a lot about. Interesting, again, the feather look. Also kind of reminds me of the bubbles and of a weird jellyfish look, but
yeah, it's of a feather.
The polar look. You know, is there a connection with her in Minnesota? We should look into that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what's up next. John Baptiste.
Yeah. Again, you know, we get interesting choice for a man's suit. You know, I don't know enough about John Baptiste either, but how about you?
Isn't he wearing, I just see those crosses. Aren't those
yeah, your Knights of Malta.
Yeah, Freemason crosses he's sporting there.
Yeah, and the pearls. You get the pearls too. So I think there's you know, I don't think it's by accident he's wearing all that.
Right.
You also get a look to Michael Jackson wore an outfit very similar to that.
Quite militant. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead to the next one. I see someone in the audience too, kind of just a second here. Said, didn't Keisha drink her own urine? I'm not sure on that, but you know, that would be something to, you know, you do get a fad with that, a diet that a lot of the celebrities are pushing. But what's curious about it is many of those pushing the drinking your own urine are also high-level alchemists. So that's something to look into, is their connection with alchemy. So I can testify to that many of those pushing that are high-level alchemists. Sombre, I don't know enough about either. But again, we get a lot with that sheer look, a mix of what would be the feminine, the masculine, not really knowing, you know, which way, which direction. Yeah. Yeah. And Halle Bailey, we give her the credit for, I think, the best dressed at this, the most normal dressed. But again, you get kind of that weird purplish brown look. You know, I don't know enough about her either to say yay or nay, but we're seeing things with the sheer, the connection with the purplish colors, you know.
Yeah.
Audrey, Nuna, EJ, and Rayami. We're going to get into stuff with their performance with the, I think it was called The Hunters. I'm forgetting the other name for it, but you know, there's going to be a lot of connection, I think, with the bird gods, a lot of display of, you know, ancient bird god worship. That is going to have a direct connection to your seventh council, which is, you know, connected to your Audubon Society. I don't think that many of these are in the Audubon. I don't think they're council members, but could they be escorts for? That's possible. Could they be trying to get a connection into those councils? Maybe. They're a little young still for that here, but, you know, could they be priestesses or escorts? That's very plausible too. So, you know, just weird stuff. You know, it's like, I don't know why people spend so much money on these outfits that, you know, that many of them, they just don't even look good. They don't look comfortable. You know, for one night, it's just crazy when you think of the money, you think of, you know, what they're displaying with it. And I think there's so much more. I think it's a new way because they can't use their jewels or their normal way of communicating. They're communicating through the attire and displaying, you know, what they are, what their position is, and what they'll be used for. But go ahead for the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mornay. Demon Hunters, that's what that's the performance song they're connected to, the last group. Kelsia Ballerini, we see her. You know, I think her dress is kind of, you know, modest and out of the norm of things. We kind of see her not in the same format as everybody else. I think that's significant. Yet, could it be, again, the serpent look that she's displaying? That's very plausible that she's displaying that serpent look. So go ahead to the next one. Chris Brown's, again, we get more of your neutral coloring with this, you know, which we're kind of seeing with the serpent crowd. So, you know, I think we are seeing a display of different groups, different orders in the Brotherhood system, different magical abilities. He had his son with this one, you know. Go ahead to the next one. And the Marias group, again, you get, you know, kind of that dark look. You know, you get the men wearing the higher collared shirts. You get kind of like that, we'll get into, but you get kind of that mortician, that dead look, the vampire look. I don't, you know, I think that they are displaying stuff in this and their connection to that. Go ahead to the next one. Queen Latifah. She's one that, you know, is she connected to some of your grand high priestesses, like, or as well as your high priestesses like Oprah Winfrey? You get a lot of your those who are suppliers in the system, both dark and light side, being connected through the like your weekly shows, your talk shows, things like that. I do believe there's a system connection with Queen Latifah. I think most of the time she presents herself as light side, you know, but I wouldn't necessarily take her outfit as displaying one thing over another, but you know, I think that she's there, and I think she's displaying some stuff, but as to exactly what, it's harder to tell. You do get kind of, you know, again, that lapel look as though there's a, you know, a robe kind of being placed over both shoulders, you know, representing Order of Melchizedek. You get the complete black robes, which will be used in certain rituals. Black and gold, also a higher connection, can be to your Order of the Phoenix, and your Teutonic Knights, out of your, which are a higher level of your Knights of Malta. You know, could this be with some of the stuff going on in Mechlon and Venezuela, Cuba, those countries? It could be that that's been some of her areas of expertise, but harder to tell exactly, without, you know, a fullness of seeing other things in other areas of her life. But go ahead to the next one. Sabrina Carpenter. We're going to see some interesting things with her. You get, you know, again, the shawl look, that covering over the shoulders. You get kind of the lacy look, you know, and we're going to get further into her outfit in the next one in the performance, but things that are made to look simple, that are made to look classy, you know, made to look so we don't question, but are they displaying more? I think they are. Go ahead to the next one. Yep. FKA Twigs. Again, we've got that look like the trees, the, you know, the Garden of Eden, the serpents, you know. So I think, you know, I think we've seen a lot this Grammy with the bird gods. Again, you get those that are connected with the earth, the trees, the serpents. I think that tends to be the theme. And even I think that the flower that she's holding is one that's known to kind of be more poisonous. So is she displaying something with more alchemy? It's plausible, you know, but just interesting, the different tones that we see. And rather than the leg, we see kind of the bands around the arm too there, which is that displaying something. Go ahead to the next one. Lola Young, again, a mixing of genders, you know, the male, the female. You get the doll, the puppet look, the clown look on her outfit. You know, is that meant to display something more? Just your typical, you know, like laid back. You know, it reminds me of more your Franciscan monk robes with the ribbon tied around the middle, but yet you see a odd bow tie up at the top. So yeah, interesting. Go ahead to the next one. And Young Blood. We know the connection with the Osbournes. Ozzy was into a lot of stuff. I saw a lot with Sharon Osbourne with him, and you know, I think that that they've raised him up to, you know, take on certain things, take on certain looks. You know, could there be a connection with the cheetah look and the black, you know, representing panthers? There could be, but you know, it could just be his rock, you know, hard rock, hard metal look.
Looks like death metal to me.
Yeah,
that's the last one.
Metal. All right. Well, that's what we got for today then on their attire, and we'll get into some of the performances next, which are really going to get into the necromancy and the different looks for that. and looks for dark alchemists, dark magicians. You know, so if you're more sensitive, you might, you know, just be prepared in your heart, because we'll kind of be going down a dark road in the next one.
Well, join us down that dark road and we'll just bring some light to that path. Yeah. Important that I think we know what's going on anyway. So buckle up, buttercups, and we will see you back in 40 minutes.